How's it going, everyone? It's been a little while, but been pretty hard into bicycling and bicycle racing lately, and I do have a watch video coming soon, but I wanted to do a post-mortem / review on my 2019 cyclocross season and this Ritchey Breakaway Cross in particular. This is my first season racing bicycles of any kind and my first season racing cyclocross, so definitely learning and learning a lot as I go, but I felt like my cycling style favors attacking and sprinting, so I felt like this was a good niche in cycling for me versus a straight endurance event like a road race. So I might try some road next year, but I really love cyclocross, and definitely it's a challenge and a test to anyone's skills. So when I was looking to start the season, I was training in the summer with a Focus Maris aluminum frame bike, and I didn't have anything wrong with it. I upgraded the rear end to a clutch gel taker derailleur, and it was a perfectly usable bike and fine. I liked it, but it just wasn't really my thing, and I also was planning a trip to Hawaii, so I said, well, I'll sell that and get this Ritchey Breakaway frame. It's not disc, but we'll talk more about that later, and I'll have something that I can ride, travel. I travel a lot, for work, so I have something that I can put in a suitcase and not have to worry about airline fees and take care of that. So I got this frame, and then really it was just kind of build it up with whatever was available for the most part. So someone was selling the shifters and rear derailleur and a cassette for this SRAM Apex 10-speed. And, it's a well-known cross. SRAM and cross go together pretty well. And that was a really good deal. I think I paid, well under $200, so that's pretty perfect. It was all literally brand new takeoff from someone's bike. So I picked that up, so that kind of drove the decision from there. I went with an Apex 1x crank for cross. I felt like I had no issues running a 42 and then an 11 to 32 for gravel. Certainly it's a workout on some hills, but I mean, unless you're doing like really crazy hill climbing stuff, it's very doable. And then for brakes, I've heard good things about the SRAM or the Avid. I mean, same company, but Shorty Ultimates. Zoom in on these here. So they're Canty brakes, but they tension off of this. I'll zoom in again. This red bolt is pinched by this, or the red collar is pinched by the bolt, and you can tension it and then adjust the spring tension. So it's super easy to adjust and really idiot-proof. And they also have a nice quick disconnect that also doubles as a pre-tension screw right here, so you can adjust it and change your pre-tension. You can see a little bit of a maintenance fail there. I just need to rerun the cable, and because rerunning these cables is a little bit of a pain with the breakaway system, I just folded it out of the way because, it's cross, it's going to get muddy anyway, so that pretty much finished up the drivetrain, and then, someone had a Physique Pavé CX, that was fine, and then some Salsa cowbell bars. At first I really did not like these bars because the flare is extreme, and so the bike gets super twitchy if you're in the drops, and even if you're in the hoods. It's a pretty wide bar for me. I think it's a 44. But for cross itself, like for road, it's a bit much. It's really twitchy. But for cross itself, it actually ended up being pretty great. As far as wheels, I originally was running, I just literally threw on some old Mavic Cerium wheels that I had lying around. But then for another build that ended up not working out, I had gotten a set of Mavic and Shimano hubbed tubular wheels. And so I am totally comfortable now gluing tubular. Maybe not totally comfortable, but figured it was a good chance. So they originally came with Griffo tires, but I actually flatted the Griffo tires because they were pretty old. I think they were 7 years old by the time I was running them. So, I had re-glued them and they were, glued in and good, everything, but the latex inner just gave out on one of my muddy races, and so I had to DNF, which was a big bummer. But I took the opportunity to switch to Baby Limas Team Editions, and these are amazing tires. Definitely can outperform me, and I have no issue. Like, if I can't ride the course with these tires, it's because I can't ride the course. It's not because these tires can't handle the course. Even on muddy courses, didn't feel like I was struggling too poorly. I could still ride, and maybe not like full bank corners, like maybe with the full Griffos or full Limases, but definitely amazing. If anything, there were definitely some races where I wish I had some chicane or other like file tread kind of tires, because they still ride fast, but like frozen ground. I had a few frozen ground races, and I feel like for frozen ground races I would have preferred a file tread. But obviously I'm a beginner, I only have one set of tires, so you can see that the rear took a beating. Let's see if I can get a shot that shows it. I'm definitely going to be giving these a truing now that I have a truing stand. I've had it for a while, but this will be a good opportunity to use it again. So obviously I put the bottle cages back on now that the season's over. I'm going to take everything apart and check, make sure everything's lubricated and clean. Do a deep clean on the chain and the cassette, and switch out of my racing tires to probably some sort of a fluffy, nice gravel tire for winter training riding. But that said, the bike, stripped down for race, I haven't weighed it, but it's definitely not, if it's probably hovering around 20 pounds, maybe a little lower. It's a light bike, even with the breakaway status. The breakaway status only adds, I think I said 100 grams to the overall weight of the bike, and you really can't tell that the bike is a breakaway when you're riding. It just feels like a bike. And this bike, I guess the handling characteristics I described, the geometry is extremely aggressive, almost to the point of being like a crit bike. Like you turn, if you really almost can't turn with the handlebars unless it's low speed, or you're really trying to do an emergency maneuver, because the bike will go way faster than you expect, and you'll go probably over the bars. It accelerates really fast. It feels like you put your weight on the pedals and it's immediately at a new speed. It doesn't feel like my focus was kind of the opposite of this, and maybe more of, I guess, what people call like a European cross geometry, where you felt like you were really high off the ground, you had a high bottom bracket, and it was more of you steered with the handlebars, like it was very stable low speed. Not that this is not stable low speed, but you have to just trust the bike, because it doesn't feel like it's stable. It's like the difference between driving like a sports car and a race car. It feels like unstable, like it's going to kill you all the time, but you don't actually ever have an issue. It's wanting to go where you want it to go at a full speed. So compliance is pretty good. I mean, it's a steel bike. It's triple butted steel. Ritchey doesn't use. He used to use Tonga Prestige tubing. He doesn't use Tonga anymore, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's similar chemical composition and drawing and all that stuff. But triple butted, the fork's carbon, steer's carbon. Let's see. Otherwise, some issues I had with the bike and the way it's built so far. So it's a breakaway. So how that works is that these little things, actually this one, you can see I've been racing every once in a while. You have to check these, because when you race, they vibrate loose. There we go. So, and this normally hovers, obviously. But this can come apart, and then your shifter can come apart. And that allows the bike to split into two pieces. It splits right here and down in this collar down here. So what ends up happening is, so the big, I guess the cosmetic complaint is that this saddle, see if I can get to do it, no, it's too warm in here, but we had a lot of cold start races, and this saddle squeaks when it's cold. This nose piece can move when you sit on it, it flexes and the nose piece kind of like tips up and in, and that squeaks, and it's just obnoxious. The other big issue, you can kind of see it, so this piece right here, this is the seam between these two separate pieces of the frame. This occasionally, you had to check the torque on these. There's not actually a torque spec for these, but you had to check to make sure they were tight really regularly, because you can see it here just from the vibration of the races. It would kind of work loose, and so ideally this would actually be completely flush. There'd be no space there. It doesn't really affect the bike at all. It's just disconcerting because you don't know if that's stressing the geometry of the frame or anything. So that's been my thought so far with that. When I traveled to Hawaii with it, it was pretty easy. It's not, they imply that it's really easy to pack it in the bag, but it is very tight. And the bag does take a beating. The bike is totally fine, aside from, definitely if you make any mistakes packing, you get a little nicks and stuff on the paint. The paint is famously terrible on Ritchey bikes because they're painted in California. I guess California has some great environmental regulations that are great for them, but suck for us who want quality paint, so they can't use any of the really strong solvents or however they build their paint there. So it's not very hard, and it chips really easy. So I have a few chips in the paint, and that's fine. It's a race bike. I don't expect it to be a safe queen. The other damage it took, this was not during traveling, but we were doing a gravel ride in southern Ohio, and it was a pretty long day. I was comfortable with the distance, but a lot of people we were riding with were struggling with the distance, and so I had done a lot of sprinting back and forth between the front pack and the group that I had traveled there with to shoot pictures and to kind of keep them encouraged and stuff and spend time with them. So I was quite tired by the end of the day, and some people were coming back along the course to greet us at the very end, and I moved over to let them pass, and someone behind me touched wheels with me, and was not experienced with how wheel touching goes. They are now experienced because it was their first race season as well, and so you touch wheels pretty often in cross, but touch wheels, ended up going down, and their bike got entangled in my rear triangle, and I luckily stayed upright, but it did a number on the paint, obviously, so that is what it is. But traveling was great. Got there, reassembled it. I went to Hawaii Big Island, and that's some of the most incredible riding on earth to me. It's just hills all the time, hills and wind. So if you want to get some hard training in and you want to tempt your significant other who isn't a cyclist with a good time, just say, hey, let's go to Big Island, Hawaii, and then you can do hill training, and they can lay on the beach, and then you can finish your ride and go lay with them on the beach. So not a tough life. But I did I think it was a 40-mile ride with, I think it was 6,000 feet of climb with this bike, with its gravel tire form. I was running Panaracer Gravel King 32s with it at the time. So that was no problem. And then, otherwise, that's about it for this bike. For the season itself, had a strong start. I did a true beginner race, so a worse than Cat 5 for those. I had only done that one race ever, so I qualified for that. I won it, but I feel like that was mostly because I got the whole shot, and people didn't, they were too new to try and attack too aggressively. So I just held the front the whole time. I never did that again the rest of the race. I definitely, by far, my weakest part of cyclocross is my starts. I suck at starts. And so even though I consistently was finishing top 5 all season in Cat 5, and so I would start front row, I would usually drop to 10th or 11th place right away at the start and have to claw my way back, which is satisfying in a way, but still frustrating overall. So
yeah, I mean, the season I felt like went pretty well. Got third once, top 5, a top 10 pretty much every race except for a couple, and then top 5, consistently. So I feel like for a first season, I'm pretty happy with that. Definitely need to work on my bike skills. There were a lot of times that I was just having to rely on being able to outwatt people like on the flats in order to make up for the fact that I was losing ground on the technical sections. So that just comes with time and with practice. I've been busy this fall, so I hadn't really had a lot of time to just like do drills like I would like to. So I missed 2 races, and so that kind of dropped my place down a little bit, but I still finished 8th overall in the series in Cat 5. So I'm pretty happy with that for a first go, and I'm happy with this bike. A lot of people were surprised to see this bike up in the front. I feel like there's a lot of mystique around carbon and aluminum, and obviously there's a lot of value to that, and definitely strongly tempted to get a disc brake bike for some of the nastier events. But in all honesty, it's not like I need it. This bike is perfectly light and brakes great. Those brakes are absolutely incredible, and in the dry, those shorty ultimates will easily throw me over the bars if I want to. So it just takes a little more planning in the wet. You have to brake, a little bit sooner than you might otherwise have to, and maybe a little bit more cautious on some of like the crazy downhill off cambers. So otherwise, what I'd like to do for this bike for next year, it depends. If I do end up getting a disc brake bike to race cross with, in addition to this bike, then I probably won't do too much to it. But the other option that I could go with is to just keep this bike as is, or keep just make this my main race bike, and then get another set of. I won't go carbon rims because I like the braking power alloy with clinchers. I don't really want to dice it with carbons. I don't think that's necessary for cross anyway, honestly. These rims are perfectly light, and I think that's a sweet spot. But I could potentially try and go, really for a travel bike, if I could go E-tap, then I could have a front shift or front derailleur if I wanted to, and then either way it's super easy to pack, and that's fun. But otherwise, really just a second wheel set with some file treads, and that would be pretty ideal. But I'm super happy with this bike. It's been a dream to ride. It's super fun. It gets compliments everywhere, and it's absolutely every bit of a bike that you could ever want. I definitely think it's worth it, and it's, especially for travel, it's even got spots for rear rack. So I pondered maybe we definitely want to do another travel trip back up to Belgium and the Netherlands and ride the Nordsee route. So potentially for that, maybe just bringing this bike and getting a titanium rear rack for it to keep it light, because that just makes it more fun. So I just wanted to do a quick video, well, not that quick, but of a post-mortem before I take the bike all down and get it kind of back into training mode for the winter. But thanks so much for your time, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. I should have another video on my daily wear watch pretty soon, so have a great day.